Would you be comfortable replacing Hal Jordan?
It doesn't matter if I'm comfortable with it.
Killing a lantern would trigger a large response.
I don't need a sidekick. And the only way you're gonna get this ring is over my dead fucking body.
Jordan's actions have accelerated the inevitable.
There's more going on here than you realize.
The best thing you can do for all of us is just go.
If you want this job,
I'm gonna have to move you off the game board.
You think they're gonna let you keep the ring?
then go and get it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. This is FiveXFive and I'm Simo. If you haven't already, smash that like and sub button. Now grab your fave bevy, a seat, and let's get into it. I'm back to give you my first impressions of Lanterns. So just for the TLDW, I liked it. It was a bit slow, but I liked it. And I'm curious to see what comes next. And I guess let's get into it. A good place to start is the way it's shot. It's shot like really beautifully. The cinematography is nice. Color grading is very like, sepia kind of, it's a prestige television show and they're taking it serious when you've got this sort of color grading. So it looks good. It looks very adult and it has a very Fargo meets David Lynch Twin Peaks plus Space Cops vibe to it. It's hard to explain, but that's either going to scare you or you're intrigued. That's the vibe going in. Casting is perfect, I think. I'm not too familiar with Kyle Chandler's work. I've seen a few things he's been in, but not usually been anything I've been following. But he's, as I expected Hal Jordan would be if he was ever brought to life. He comes off as sufficiently insufferable and he's played very well to that. He's written well to that. Kyle Chandler does a good job of bringing that to life. Aaron Pierre is fantastic. This is the first time we're seeing Jon Stewart in live action, so I think a lot of people are really excited to see that. Aaron Pierre looks like he's ripped right out of the comics. Those are very pretty eyes. I hope they make them glow green. He brings Jon Stewart to life in a way that I didn't expect either. He is the Jon Stewart that I know and love from comics and animation and cartoons. So he's got this stoic big teddy bear vibe going on. And I don't know, I've seen other takes that really want to present him as being arrogant and whatever, but I don't see that. He comes off as stoic and patient. I mean, the show tells us that he's not. He claims to not be patient, or, well, Zoe says he's not patient, but he comes off as patient, or maybe patient might not be entirely correct, but strategic, or maybe calculated. Maybe calculated is a better way of putting it. Feels like how I would imagine him to be. And normally a stoic character is this really, like toxic masculinity, but that's not how it is here. He still somehow embodies Jon Stewart's warmth. I think that's really special. I think that's really hard to do, and especially just in the first episode and the beginning of the character's career. I like that they're weaving that in at the very beginning. So you know that he's a warm, deserving guy. And they must have given that thought, right? Like they know the mythos behind the Green Lantern IP. You don't just get a ring if you're not worthy. You have to have compassion and a love for life. And I think they're weaving that in by making little drops about him being a vegan and stuff. So it's peppering in the idea that he has respect for all life. And I think that's very important in the current political landscape, everything going on in the world. And considering that he's supposed to be a space cop, he's going to be interacting with beings from all over the known galaxy or the in-universe galaxy, right? So you can't really have a character that only values some types of life and not other types of life. If you value life, it has to consistently be applied to everything you encounter. I doubt a lot of people are picking up on that, but I think that's why they've introduced that element to his character. We will see. It will probably pay off at some point, but we will see. At least looks-wise, and from what I've seen so far, the way they're writing him, he's like ripped right out of the comics. He's exactly what I expected from Jon Stewart out of all of the most iconic iterations of the character that I've ever seen and encountered. Hopefully, any audiences that are skeptical of him will get behind him as the show progresses. Time will tell. One thing I really like about the way the characters are being written, though, is they're both being written as very competent. Often in these buddy cop shows, you get one character that's the loose cannon or the comedic relief, and the others that The other one is the straight guy and no pun, and the boring played by the rules guy. And you kind of like one or the other, and one is seen as completely useless and incompetent at the expense of the other. They're only supposed to kind of make sense when working together, but somehow one is always actually kind of incompetent and would never be able to do the job without the other. And I like that they don't take that approach here. They're both portrayed as very competent from the start. It's very clear that they were chosen to hold on to this super weapon, and the responsibility wasn't just given lightly. These are highly competent people, and even on their own, they don't fall apart, right? They don't need each other to operate. They are functioning on their own. Actually, the sheriff is written in a way that's competent as well. Like, it'd be so easy for the writers of the show to sort of make the sheriff kind of like this backwater bumpkin type. The big space cops roll into town and they have all the information, and the silly backward sheriff has nothing and they can't possibly do the job without them. And that's not really the case here. They even write her as being quite competent, and she's very aware of what's going on and everything at the same time as everyone else is. And it's actually really refreshing. That kind of is what drew me in right away. I have a hard time with shows that don't necessarily talk down to me, but they talk to a more base audience that kind of assumes that nobody else can follow along, and they're more of a superficial show. This show isn't really written like that. It's a bright, clever show, and it is setting a good pace to keep up with. The writing is good. They've got the tone right off the bat. The characters are written seriously. The show is written seriously. They know they have this completely fantastic, extraordinary sci-fi concept happening, and they want it to be taken seriously. And the show knows that they have to sort of make the world believable and then add in these fantastic elements that are more of a stretch. It's presented realistically, and then you get moments of levity. It doesn't lean in too hard to the comedy. It's just clever humor. It's not base sort of childish humor. It's witty. It's savvy. It's just a more intelligently written approach. And I like that they're keeping, at least from what we've seen so far, the bar scene shows us that they're going to be keeping a lot of the more difficult elements of the Green Lantern mythos into the canon. So they're keeping Abin Sur in. Hal describes when he got the ring, and he does it vaguely enough to be in line with every media interpretation of those events. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get a flashback, because the show does a lot of flashbacks, right? So hopefully we'll get a lot of flashbacks where we actually get to see Abin Sur, and we get to see when he finds Abin Sur and he gets the ring. That would be really cool, because I would like to completely forget that whole Ryan Reynolds incident. I feel like I have to kind of say something about John's dad. I hope other people are sitting going, wait, no, that's not cool. It doesn't matter if this kid can handle the fear or not. We still don't point guns at our kids and shoot apples off of their heads. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I had a problem with that. I don't know if other people will or not, but I think it needed to be mentioned. That's not normal. That's abusive. I guess keeping on the line of the story, it's obviously very early to say what's going to happen in the show. We've only seen the first episode, with the next episode airing on Sunday. I think, just putting some early stuff out there, when they introduced the hologram, cute by the way, when they introduced the hologram, I knew right away that they were going to be killing off Kyle Chandler, or, well, Hal Jordan in any case. And I knew exactly why they were doing it. They had a problem. They know that the Green Lantern ring has to be passed over to the next person by the previous one dying, and you have two guys that are in the show here. So what they're doing is they're making a show where Hal trains John for like a season or two, and then Hal dies, John holds the ring. But the other problem is that you have real hardcore fans of Green Lantern who will want a show like this to be based on Hal, and they will have a hard time accepting John Stewart. Even though he's been around for decades, he's black, he's relatively new to a lot of older fans. Their iconic iteration of Green Lantern is Hal. It's not John Stewart. So this allows them to make the show all about John Stewart and still write the show in a way that it's actually all about Hal Jordan, because what's going to happen is they're going to end up at least where I think this is going, is that they're going to spend the whole show, or at least the first season, doing a whodunit as to who killed Laura Palmer. I mean, Hal Jordan. That way, John gets to have the ring, and the entire show circles around Kyle Chandler and Hal Jordan's character. So they get to have their cake and eat it too. With the hologram, they get to keep them all in the same scene. So he doesn't have to be a Green Lantern. He's still in the scenes, and he's still on camera. He's still a part of the cast, but now he's a hologram instead of the Green Lantern. That opens up the show for a lot of things in the future too. Where do you go next? Do you have another season of John Stewart exploring the universe, or do you introduce other lanterns? Maybe the show shifts focus entirely after a season or two, and instead of talking about John Stewart and Hal Jordan, maybe we get a show that's all about the Red Lanterns or the Yellow Lanterns, or Carol Ferris somewhere with a violet ring somewhere. The show is called Lanterns. It's not specifically about Green Lantern anymore. It's just generally at least about these two Green Lanterns, and at most about every lantern that's ever been introduced. So who knows where the show could go after like a season or two. And plus, just to drive the point home, if they ever need more Hal Jordan as Green Lantern, they can always just flash back to when he was the Lantern, and you could have that episode. Like I said, you could have an episode where we see him get his ring from Madame Sir. You could have an episode in a flashback where we see him meet Sinestro for the first time. For second season or something, I could imagine them reversing the roles, where instead of season 1 showing John being trained by Hal, season 2 is flashing back to when Hal was trained by Sinestro and then falls. That would be based. They have a lot of flexibility in where they can go and the way that they're writing the show. So the only problem with that is that the jumping around on the timeline could get really confusing, and it could just kind of work out to be more of like a cheap tactic to obscure any problems with the plot. It's really going to depend on how the show is written and how well it's executed. A couple things that stuck out on me, I'm going to just call out because I didn't like them. I really didn't like the ring, the actual physical prop of the ring. I watched a little featurette of how the ring was made and the design ideas behind it. And in it, the designers talked about how they wanted it to look really old and weathered. So they added in like the gold elements and stuff. And as a creative, I just think, and a fan of like the source material, DC Comics, I just think this is a really good example of when a designer doesn't understand the source material enough, because saying, hey, we want to have this older, sort of ancient looking ring and making it more human looking by adding gold and stuff like that, I think is the complete wrong direction for the creation of this prop. I can't speak for everybody. At least for me, when I imagine these rings, they are super advanced tech. Yeah, they're ancient, but they're super advanced tech. And that's just how far behind in advancement humanity is compared to this alien tech. So they're supposed to look old, but they shouldn't look like antique human technology. I want them to look weathered, but advanced and alien, right? I think that's the way to go. And adding the gold really bothers me. So I'm going to kind of whine about it here. I really hope they redesign the ring and update the ring at some point in the season or going into season 2. They're kind of using the ring charges in an interesting way. It looks like they're kind of using the way the ring charges as like a limitation that paces them for their visual effects budget. So they have a built-in excuse for not using big flashy green visual effects all the time. Right? So you can't be just using the green ring all willy-nilly all the time. And it looks like they're kind of going to do that. And that is kind of clever, if I'm being honest. I think that's pretty clever. But it's really going to depend on how it's executed. It could end up just being like, oh, this is cheap and annoying. You guys just don't have the budget for it. But if it's done well, it could be like, okay, that's super clever. It'll either be genius or it'll be a total cop-out. And also, on the topic of the ring, I really didn't like the way the visual effects were visualized. The lantern constructs look like glass or jade or some sort of like green stone, and I don't like it at all. I was really hoping and wanted the show to get away from the look of the constructs that was in the awful Ryan Reynolds movie, where they all looked like solid green glass or stone. And I wanted them to look more like Energy, and I don't know. I'm really disappointed by how they look, so I can't imagine them changing, but hopefully over time the show will make them evolve more, and as we see more, maybe this is just a bad first impression, but as the show evolves and gets further into the actual season, hopefully they make the constructs more Energy looking. Overall, I liked it, and I am optimistic about the direction of it. I'm actually super curious, pleasantly surprised, and I am enthusiastically waiting for a new episode in a few days, and we will see. So that's what I thought. Did you like the episode? Is Hal supposed to be less insufferable or more insufferable? Is John supposed to be like more uptight, less uptight? I don't know. Where do you fall on it? Let me know in the comments below. That's a wrap for now. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. Stay safe and look out for each other.